Great, great. Yes, it started
Okay, yeah,
recording now.
yeah,
I
it's
can see.
pressed. Yes,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can see. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I think we'll start. There are 21 participants.
Okay.
Good afternoon, dear participants and Dr. Mary Kopelian. Glad to see you once more. As you know, our dear students and colleagues, yesterday we had lecture on Egyptian potential in tourism with Dr. Soha Mohammed Abdel. As you told us, the lecture was really interesting. We are very thankful for staff of tourism and hotel management faculty of Helwan University. And today, Dr. Mary Kopelian, the Associated Professor of Tourism Guidance, will give us information about the exploring Egyptian museums, history, concept, and exhibitions. Dear doctor, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Really good afternoon. I'm honored and happy, and it's my great pleasure to be lecturing today and to be part of this great cooperation between Tashkent University, your great distinguished faculty, and our faculty, Tourism and Hotel Management, Helwan University. So thank you very much, and I hope that I'll meet your expectations. So let's start. Can you see the screen now? Can you see?
Not yet.
Okay, so maybe I'll share it again.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So, just a moment. Yeah, okay, is it clear now?
Yes.
Okay, great, great. I just want to check, is everyone hearing me properly and seeing the screen, all the students? Or if they can face any problem, they can write it in the chat box and we can solve it, during the process of our lecture, so that to make sure that they will not miss, a single part of it. Okay, and at the end, I'm also asking them to have a piece of paper to write down their comments and their questions, so that at the end we'll dedicate 10 minutes, maximum 15 minutes for them to have, the space to answer questions, to hear comments, and to have fruitful interaction, discussion with the students. Okay, so let's start. First of all, when I heard about the program and this cooperation, so I selected to talk about Egyptian museums. And it's an important topic, and it is relevant to the field of tourism. And this is what I've learned. It's, your top concern in your great university and faculty. So Egyptian museums, it's an important topic. And we have many types of museum. They reflect the diversity of the civilization that we have in our country. And also it's the backbone for tourism, which is the economy of the Egyptians, okay? And it's an important tool for us. So first of all, I'm going to start a journey with you, exploring the Egyptian museums. We'll start with the concept. Concept is the message and the idea behind displaying the collection inside the different museums, the history of these museums, how it started, whether they were historical palaces transferred into museums, whether they are buildings built to be a museum to protect the artifacts from being lost, or there are educational institutions to help raising awareness for the community. And then I'm going to focus or shed the light on different exhibitions we have in our museums. To start with, this is just a map to give you an idea about Egypt and the different big cities that we're going to talk about it today in our presentation, where we have main or important museums. For example, this is Alexandria. at the north on the Mediterranean basin. And then we're going to talk about Cairo. It is located here. And then we'll shift to Memphis, which is the capital and one of the most important cities in the ancient Egyptian civilization. We have also the Red Sea, where we have new museums recently inaugurated, one in Sharm el-Sheikh, which is located in South Sinai Governorate, and we have Hurghada Museum, which is in the Red Sea, near the Red Sea. Then we're going to, with the flow of the Nile, sail to the south, to Upper Egypt, where we're going to shed or focus on the Nubian Museum, which is ethnological museum. They reflect the community and we see how the people they live. Aswan, where we have there the Nile Museum. It's managed and run by the Ministry of Irrigation. And this is also, it's very interesting to mention that not all the museums in Egypt are part of the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities. So we have, for example, the Ministry of Irrigation, they have museums. The Ministry of Agriculture, they have museums. Ministry of Petroleum, Ministry of Aviation, Ministry of Defense. So we have almost all our ministries, they have or they run museums, and they are classified as either main major museums or regional, local, specialized museums, and they are all classified as successful museums. So the classifications, as I've mentioned, so we have the main museums that I'm going to start with. Then we have the local, or we call it the regional museums, like museums, for example, in Kafr el-Sheikh, in Ismailia, they are in important cities. And we have specialized museums like biographical museums, historical museums, art museums, ethnographical museums, all types of museums. We have it in Egypt. We have another category, which is the recently inaugurated museums. They just inaugurated in December 2020. And we have our new museum mega projects, like the Great Grand Egyptian Museum, which is abbreviated with the word GEM. And we have the NEMEC, which is the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization. So we're going to talk about history, concept, and exhibition, because they are very important. And when we combine history, concept, exhibition, so we have a museum at the end. And this will help us to give a new definition for a museum. And this is what we're working on now in the different committees. They are entitled, or they are responsible for building and running the museums. So museums now in Egypt, it's not just a place to keep artifacts. So they are places for educate. They are places to reflect. They are mirror for the Egyptian society, and they are echoing the ancient Egyptian civilization, the current crafts. They are the current excavations that we have. Every now and then you hear in the news about the recent discoveries in Saqqara, in Luxor. So the museums now, they reflect all these important points. It's not just a place to show or just to keep. Sorry, I have to admit, yes, admit all, yeah. So before we starting, I just, asked some questions for our beloved students. What types of museums do you expect to see in Egypt? I know that the majority will say, okay, ancient Egyptian or antiquity museums. And this is, the fame of Egypt, the antiquities, the kings, Tutankhamun. Okay. And then the second question, what do you think is the main source of collection in museums, in the Egyptian museum? Because we know that museums worldwide, they have the source of the collection. It's either loans or gifts, or for example, bought from auctions. Okay, but what about the main source of collections in the Egyptian museums? It's totally different. Okay, and what is the impact of museums in Egypt on the community and tourism and in the economy? Because we have domestic tourism and we have the international tourism, and they are together, they make the economy of Egypt. So the museums, they like the backbone, we said, for the tourism and for the economy of Egypt. And also, I just want you to guess the style of architecture used in building our museums, because this is also its interesting point. I don't want you just to focus on what you see, the collection inside the museum, but we have also buildings in Egypt. We have museums. They are functioning as successful museums without any collection. So this is also, it's interesting because of the story behind the building, the events that happened in this important places. We call it museums in Egypt. So to start with the main museums in Cairo, so I started with the Old Cairo, the Coptic Museum, which is located in Old Cairo. And it is in the first capital in Islam, which is Fustat. And we call the whole area, we call it Old Cairo now. And it is historical, and the whole area, which is Old Cairo, it is regarded as an open air museum because of the monuments they have and the important valuable buildings they have. So one of them is this beautiful outstanding museum, which is called the Coptic Museum. Coptic means Egyptian, and it is describes the Christian Egyptians. The Christian Egyptians. So this museum, it is in context. So it is built on, so this is, I have just also added another map just to give you an idea that this is Alexandria, this is Cairo, this is Old Cairo, where we're talking about, where we have our beautiful Coptic Museum. I selected it because it is the first museum in Egypt that built by an Egyptian, and the director was an Egyptian, unlike the other main museums. So that's why I selected this one, and Coptic means Egyptian. So to start the introduction about museums connected with Egypt. So here also you have another map with the different monasteries and the different cities, I'm sorry. So here you have another view of the whole area of Old Cairo. This is the Coptic Museum. Next to it, built on the fortress of Babylon, on one of the towers of the fortress of Babylon, you have St. George, its Greek Orthodox Church. Next to it, you find the famous Mu'allaka, or the Hanging Church. And at the back, you can see now, unfortunately, it is the ruins of the first Islamic capital, which is Al-Fustat. And next to it, you can find the first mosque in Africa, which is the Mosque of Amr ibn al-As. So this slide just gives you an idea about the valuable buildings that you have in this important site. So the Fortress of Babylon, the Hanging Church, the museum, many, many, many churches, and most of them visited by the Holy Family in their visit, in their trip to Egypt, their voyage to Egypt. You have also cemeteries, you have mosques, you have synagogue also, temple for the Jews. So it is, it's a site for coexistence. That's why I mentioned it's a museum itself, in addition to the buildings they have. So this is the Hanging Church, which is built on one of the towers, one of the gates of the fortress of Babylon. Here we can see it is high, and it is called Mu'allaka because it is hanged. It is not hanged from the top, but built on one of the gates. And this is the garden of the Coptic Museum. So this is the building itself of the museum. This is the old wing and the remaining of the fortress of Babylon. And we can see the technique of the Romans in building. They use 5 layers of white stone and 3 layers of red brick. And this is typical, it's Roman. And this is the fortress of Babylon. Until now, it is surviving, some parts restored and other retained original material. Although the area is not that strong area, the foundation, because we have the underground metro there, and we have also people living very close to the site. But still the area, the government and all the ministries, they are paying a lot of attention to this important historical site. So this is the museum. It started as a small church museum, and later on transferred into one of the big museums. So this is the founder of the museum. he is Mor Osmeka Pasha, and he has a dream to have a museum in order to house and to protect the Coptic artifacts from being lost and to keep it for the future generations. So he got support from the church, and the original material of this museum started with some of the liturgical objects or objects used in the church. The Patriarch Krolos V, he gave it to Mor Osmeka Pasha and also gave him 180 Egyptian pounds at that time as a support to help him to build his dream museum. Later on, he is from a venerable family, Mor Osmeka Pasha, his friends, he started to collect a lot of artifacts and to build this museum. The museum, this is actually the facade. Facade means the frontal part of the building, the front part of the building of the new wing. So this is, and actually this part, it is the old wing, and the other building, it is the administration of the museum. Very interesting thing about the architecture of this museum. If we can just compare the facade of this is the Coptic Museum at the top, and the one at the bottom, it is the facade of Al-Akmar Mosque in Shara al-Mu'izz. It's a Fatimid. So you can see it's like copy paste. It's similar. So except for the cross, you have the cross, and this is normal because it's the building houses Christian artifacts. And here you have the beautiful Islamic calligraphy, floral decoration, interlaced plants, geometrical motifs. So here you can see that it's how they coexisted. So the meaning, how we read the stone here, it's coexistence. Not only Christians and Muslims, they live next to each other in Egypt. They live together, work together, but also the building. They are echoing with each other. So this is a famous mosque, and you can find the same motif. It's copied on the Coptic Museum, the facade. So it's very important. Then below you can find some very beautiful miniature sculptures, preparing the visitor for what they are going to see inside the museum. For example, they will reflect that they're going to see beautiful stonework, sculpture, floral motifs, dynamic art. As you can hear, you can see in these roundels as if there is a movement. It's not something static. So you can see here the movement. All this will be reflected on the collection that we're going to experience inside the museum. So I think more people there. Yes. Yeah, excuse me, I'm just, yes, two more. So we are, okay. Okay, so about the concept of the museum. So before, am I too fast or it's okay? Can you follow properly? Is it okay?
Yes,
okay.
Yes,
okay.
yes, yes.
Okay, so now we're going to leave the facade and we're going to enter the museum. So the museum not only houses Christian artifacts, and this is the surprise, when we go in, we're going to find pagan art. Okay, Nilotic scenes, which are scenes related to the Nile, because Nile is life of Egypt. Ancient Egyptians, until now, it's life because it's the source of water. We have ancient Egyptian elements in Coptic art. We have the mixed iconography between the art and architecture. Egyptian monasticism, because Egypt is pioneer in monasticism, and monasticism started in Egypt and then spread all over the world. Then we're going to find some biblical themes like the Old Testament, glorification for Virgin Mary, pilgrimage also, and which is common in Christianity and Islam. And we're going to see some beautiful manuscripts, okay, which also reflect the coexistence. In addition to articles of daily life, toys, and makeup elements, boxes for storage, very beautiful things. Burial elements, because you have life, you have daily life, and then you have the burial. It's the same ancient Egyptian concept. You have elements related to the church because it started as a church museum. So now we can see this beautiful piece. It's I'm not going to talk too much about all the collection, but just to focus on the leading objects that if you have the chance to come to Egypt, that you can visit and learn from it and experience it. So this is a funerary stela where we can see the deceased in an orant attitude with upraised hand. Until now, we use this position in praying in Christians and Muslims, when we pray, we raise our hands. So this is Roman, and then we can see the ancient Egyptian influence always. The cavetta cornice with the copras, and then we can find god Anubis, the god of the mummification. It is also existed in the art, and till now in contemporary art also we can see it, but with different interpretations. Then we have the beautiful legends, okay, like Orpheus and Eurydice. It is the tragic love story between Orpheus, the god of music, and the beautiful lyre here, the musical string instrument, with his loving Eurydice. And we describe it as the tragic, sad love story. We can see also the interlaced acanthus leaves and the symmetry, and how this collection collected from a site which is unfortunately now in total ruin, called Ihnasia. It's about 300 kilometers south of Cairo, and how they collected this artifact and they brought it to the museum to be very well preserved. And that's and without the museum, all these things will have gone. And then we have a good collection of textile also, and the Coptic art, it is famous with the textiles, where they depict legends, Greek legends, or lives of saints, or just scenes from the environment, nature. Also, the Nile is very important, and we have it in almost all our paintings, in all our civilizations, the ancient Egyptian, Greek, Roman, Christian, Islam. Till now, the contemporary art, we have the Nile, and we have personification of the Nile. We have beautiful column capitals. We call it, it's the basket-shaped column capital, where you can feel the movement. You can hear, and here just I can give you a hint that the museums are for educational, and how we can taste and read art. For example, here you can see that these doves, they are ready to fly. Okay, and then you can find in between the looped cross, which is the early form of the cross developed from the Ankh sign, which is the sign of life. And cross for Christians, it's life, and the Ankh for the ancient Egyptian, symbol of life, and it means life and living. So here, for example, it just tells us the story of Christianity, that Christianity, the transitional period Christianity came after paganism. Okay, smooth, just, you know, the transitional period. And we can see how it is interlaced with all the details, and the artist confident in freeing all the details, although it is made out of marble, and it's a very hard stone, okay, to do all this details. So this is about the display of the first floor. It is collected from the monastery of Apa Jeremia in Saqqara. It's an important site, not only famous for the ancient Egyptian artifacts, but also for the Christian, because there used to be a monastic settlement there, belongs to the abbot Apa Jeremia. We can see the column capitals. We can see the symbolism here, the peacock in the niche, which is a symbol of paradise, the pillars with all the interlaced floral motifs. So this is the patio, where you have the different types of column capitals. Another interesting thing, it is this palm. So this palm, actually, it is from the time when Moros Sameka, the founder of the museum, established the museum. So this is, so here we have, now we have another new one. So we have 3 generations. This is grandma, and this is the daughter, and here we can have, you know, the grandchild. So this is very clever from the architect. When he designed this patio, he wanted to keep it because it's life, and all these column capitals, they are inspired from nature. So here we can see the palm leaves carved on the column capitals, and at the same time you can see a real palm tree next to it, with all these beautiful mashrabeyas next to them, because they used also from the deserted home, Moros Sameka with his team, they collected all the wooden windows, mashrabeya, and he used it in building the museum. And this is the oldest pulpit made out of a stone in the world. So it is from Saqqara also, and it is on display in this museum. And these are the prayer niche, also from the cell of the monk, collected and by the Italian team, restorers, with cooperation with the Ministry of Antiquity. They were able to cut them from the site to protect them, and displayed in this beautiful, outstanding way. You have also daily life elements collected from monasteries, column capitals from deserted monasteries, scenes telling the story of monasticism, and this is a part of decorating the lower part in one of the monasteries in Bawit, which is an important site also. Another interesting thing that the artist here, he used the compass in order to draw it, and you can see the traces of the compass here. These are the leading objects. It's a lunette showing the abbot of the monastery in Bawit with saints. Another lunette, which is a very famous one, shows Christ with the cross halo, and he is carried by two angels. This is also from Bawit. This is a general view of the first floor. Moving to the second floor, we can see you have the material here. It is on display according to the objects. They are displayed according to the material. We have textiles, manuscripts, icons, which means religious image, Christian image, ostrakas, parts made out of pottery used for writing, bone, glass, metalwork, ivory. So you have all types of material used here. So we have textiles, different themes. We have Old Testament themes, the famous story of the three Hebrews in fiery furnace. It's a wooden sculpture. We have a beautiful church in Nubia called Abdallah Nurki, where we have the famous theme of the Nativity, which is also a mural painting, and it is very well displayed and given care in the museum. This is the famous ivory comb, which shows the miracles of Christ, healing the blind and raising of Lazarus. And this this comb is very interesting because it was used by a priest. It was discovered in a monastery called Abu Hannes, and it was used by a priest before he started celebrating the Mass. So in order to, to comb his hair, and so that he will be very well dressed and taken care before starting the Mass in the monastery. And this is the backside. A very interesting part, which is the ceiling of the old wing, where you can see this marvelous ceiling made out of wood, and it is decorated with scenes reflecting nature, and the stained glass all full with the symbolism, Coptic art. So this is the ceiling of the old wing, and this is the leading object in the museum, which is the Book of the Psalms. It's the only copy discovered in the world. It was discovered in a poor village in Bani Suef, below the head of a little girl when she passed away. So she's from a poor family, and her family, they own only this Book of the Psalms. So they keep it, they buried below the head of the girl when she passed away, as a sort of protecting. And this shows how things, all these customs and traditions, till now we have this sort of things. You have coins from monasteries. You have, for example, the key from the White Monastery in Sohag, manuscripts, and this is from the first glimpse. Unless you read, you can feel that it's a gospel, it's part of the gospel. But from the first sight, you can be mistaken, confused whether it's the Holy Quran or it's a Bible, okay, because of the beautiful decoration that it's in the Arabic calligraphy. This is the lamp, with also the symbols of the ancient Egyptian, with the frog, which is a symbol of eternity and resurrection. And this is the oil lamp. They put the oil here, they put the oil, and then you have a thread here in the middle, and they use it to permit light in the monasteries. And this is the howdag, where the bride used to sit, and carried by camels. Gospel caskets, silver gospel caskets. And this is the oldest altar made out of wood, and the only one in the world that it was kept in this museum, because usually the altar, it is placed in the sanctuary made out of a stone because it symbolizes the tomb of Christ, but here it is made out of wood. And this is outstanding one, dates back to the 5th century and discovered in a church close to the museum. And this is also an icon, just to give you an icon. It's a religious image, either showing saints, Virgin Mary, Christ, or themes. And this is the oldest door, which dates back to the 6th century. And there is another opinion mentioned that could date back to the 4th century. from a beautiful church called Saint Barbara. So they move it to the museum in order to protect it. Now we're going to move to the second main museum and the beautiful museum, which is the Museum of Islamic Art. It is also in downtown. It is one of the greatest museums in the world because of its building architecture and also because of the exceptional collection. They have metal, ceramic, glass, textile objects, manuscripts. They have unbelievable things. And it's the date of inauguration and building, it was 1903. And unfortunately, in 2014, you know, it was affected severely by a bomb because it is just facing the headquarters of the police. But thank God, all Egyptians, they started to work on it. And now it is even more and more beautiful than the former one. So the museum, they displayed 4,500 artifacts in addition to 100 more in the storages. So about the architecture, as you can see, the luxurious rich decorations, and it is all inspired by Islamic architecture from the different periods. So as if it's an institution, you go there and you learn all the techniques and the architectural aspects in the different Islamic dynasties. Okay, about the collection. So this is just a general view to have an idea about this beautiful museum. You have stone collections, you have friezes from the walls from mosques, you have beautiful tiles, you have the famous Kilga with the Kufic inscriptions where they used to keep water, and they have this small plate so that if you have some drops of water, it will not be lost, can be kept for the birds, that they come also and use water. You have the beautiful tiles with all the beautiful Islamic calligraphy. The lamps with the calligraphy where you have the names of the Sultan, they are also very well represented. The beautiful manuscripts, which is tells the story of the medicine, and this museum also is famous for the surgery tools that they have and how in the Islamic civilization, medicine, surgery was at the top. Okay, and you have prescriptions, carpets, you have ivory kahl container, which was used makeup and also for protecting the eye, and it is inlaid with mother of pearls and dates back to the Mamluk time. You have this golden enamel brush, and it is inscribed with God is the best protector, Allah khayru hafiz, and it is Fatimid era. You can see how it is beautifully made and very well protected. This is the marvelous wooden portable mihrab from the mausoleum of Sayyida Ruqayya. Also Fatimid dates back to the 12th century AD. So it's countless. So I don't know what to choose. So if you know I am in your place, you can just write down the names of the museums, and you can either Google them or visit their website, or if when you have the chance, inshallah, come and visit it by yourself. I don't know what to choose and what to leave. It's really very confusing. It's a beautiful museum and one of the unique museums in the world. Moving to the Egyptian Museum in Tahrir. I know that you're expecting to start with it. So I just, make it a bit, forward after 3 museums, just to show you that it's one of the great museums in Egypt, the well-known one situated in Tahrir Square, but also we have other museums competing the Egyptian Museum. So this museum, it is the house of the ancient Egyptian and Greek Christian artifacts. The building, it is built in the facade, it is in the neoclassical style, where we can see here the initials of Abbas Helmi, in whose reign this museum was inaugurated. Goddess Isis, the wife of goddess Osiris, and here goddess Hathor. She is represented the famous cow goddess. And we have 2 types of display in this museum. We have the outdoor and we have the indoor display. So in front of the facade, we have a very famous fountain where you can see here the papyrus and the lotus, the symbol of unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. We have the famous Sphinx of the great pharaohs. The interior display, you have huge colossal statues, and we have parts of chapels, statues, minor objects, manuscripts, the mummies also. So the museum is divided into two floors, the ground floor and the first floor. And the leading objects, Taban, it's not only this, but also I'm confused what to choose, but this is the famous King Khafre. He is one of the famous kings of the Fourth Dynasty and the builder of the second pyramid at Giza Plateau. And this is the famous unknown scribe, and it is made out of limestone. And also here we can see how the artist skillfully emptied, although he is not using with a very hard stone, it's limestone. And we have it in Egypt a lot. And we can see how he emptied, freed the space between the hands, and how he was keen to make all the details in carving this statue. And the eyes, also the inlayment of the eyes, we can see here the green color as if it is malachite or copper. But all what
Sorry.
No, don't worry. No.
Can you make about the voice? Can you make it?
Okay.
Can you make her mute? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is, for example, we have the famous collection of Tutankhamun. So this is one of the stoppers of the canopic jars, the Vesera jars, that belongs to King Tutankhamun, the famous shrine of Goddess Hatshepsut, the chapel, where you can see all the scenes, the colors very well kept till now. So another view of the sarcophagi that we have it in the museums, part of floor, the false doors, the altars, that we have the famous mask, the golden mask of the great pharaoh, Tutankhamun. And all this collection of the king is now temporary on display in the Egyptian Museum, but they will find their way, move to the Grand Egyptian Museum in next to the pyramids. And this Grand Egyptian Museum, it's the mega project, one of the mega projects in Egypt, and it will be focusing on all the collection of the famous king Tutankhamun, and some of the collection will be on display for the first time in the Grand Egyptian Museum. So moving to another museum, which is the Manial Palace Museum. It's a historical museum. It's a palace for Prince Muhammad Ali Tawfiq, and the uncle of King Farouk, who was one of the famous kings in Egypt. And it was his palace. And when he built his palace, he wanted to be a school for all types of art, Islamic art, Art Nouveau, European art, for example, all types of art reflected in his palace, so that everyone can come and to learn from his the architecture, the art. And till now, by the way, this is the bell tower, and they have this is the minaret of the mosque. And till now, every Friday, the mosque is open for the Friday prayer. Although it's antique and it's a monument and it's a museum, but during the Friday prayers, the mosque is open for the people to come and pray within this palace. So you have a beautiful garden, botanical plants all over, collected from all over the world. You can find the rooms, some of the collection with the labels, they were used and brought from countries abroad. You have the coronation hall. I am sorry for the quality of some of the images. They are not that clear. I do apologize for that. But you can find the reception hall, the bedrooms, the guest room, the bureau of the prince. Moving to Nubia, where we can see one of the beautiful museums. It's the Nubian Museum. Although it is called the Nubian Museum, it is not in Nubia. It is in Aswan. In Aswan, which is located, which is in Upper Egypt, in the south of Egypt, and it is one of the ethnographical museums, one of the beautiful, outstanding museums in the world, where we can see a reflection of the Nubian people, how they learn, for example, the Arabic language, how they learn the Quran Karim in the houses, how they celebrated their weddings and all the customs, traditions, their crafts, in addition to Christianity in Nubia. Not only, the Nubian life, Nubian craft, decoration, but also Christian art, ancient Egyptian, the civilization, and you have it all, the idea of balancing. and it is one of the museums that it is top visited by the Nubians. So in the weekends, whenever there is a public holiday, the Nubians, they go and they visit the museum because they can see themselves. Another important museum, which is one of the state museums, is the Abdin Palace Museum, which is a historical palace. We have, in the history, in the modern history of Egypt, it's an important landmark. And it was used one of the official residences for the former ruling monarchy there. And nowadays, it's one part of it. It's a workplace for the presidency. So it comprises some of the museums there, and they are reflecting ancient Egyptian art. We have a museum showing weapons, and we have the palace. And these two images at the bottom, they give you an idea. They give you an idea about the palace, and it is also open for the visit. And these are some of the artifacts that it is on display in the museums there. They have monuments, they have weapons. In the Art Museum, they have the Royal Family Museum. Also, a new museum opened there. It's for the historical documents used in ancient Egypt, and they are all digitized, and it is available for research, for visits, in order to read and to have a nice there. And you have most of the gifts presented to King Pharaoh, and he gave it after he left Egypt. Despite he left and he was not the king anymore, he returned back to Egypt, and we have it in this beautiful museum. We have busts of important kings, Muhammad Ali, his son Khidewi Ismail, and the important things that they used to use it during their time. They are very well restored and kept in this beautiful museum. Another museum that we call it's Art and Islamic Architecture. It's the Geir Anderson Museum. When we talked about the Coptic Museum, I started telling, yes, it's a church museum. It's in context. It is annexed to a church. Okay, Geir Anderson Museum, it's annexed to a mosque. The mosque of Ahmed ibn Tolon in Gabal of Yoshkor, when he established his beautiful capital of Qata'a in the Tolonite dynasty. So this beautiful Geir Anderson Museum, it reflects art and Islamic architecture. So that's why, and the name, it's a bit very surprising. So it's not an Egyptian name. And also this museum, when you search for it, you can find the name Beit el-Keretleya. So museum has two names, Beit el-Keretleya or Geir Anderson. So why Beit? Because this is the house where Geir Anderson lived. After getting the permission from the Egyptian government, and he got the title Pasha also. And this house is considered one of the remarkable examples of Muslim domestic architecture in Egypt. So it's a house museum. In addition, you have some of the artifacts, some of the replicas brought with by Geir Anderson, and they were on display in this beautiful museum. And this is the interior view of it with all the furniture, and they are very well preserved, carpets, curio, and other objects. You have the bedroom, and you have many important elements. Now moving to the museums that recently inaugurated in Egypt. So we have existed, in addition to the museums that I just talked about, we have other museums. But these are the most or the top visited one. But we have other museums, but because of the time, I wasn't able to gather all the museums, but I tried to make a selection of the different one where you can find similarities between them. And all of them, they are on the touristic map. So now we thought the government now in New Egypt, we're thinking that it's not enough. What we have, it's not enough. So Egypt deserves more. We need more museums. We need in every city to have a museum. We have a lot of artifacts. We need many stories to tell. It's not finished. So that's why we have new museums, and we have the new idea. All the other museums, they are governmental museums, all made by the government. But the Hurghada Museum, it's one of the PPP. It's the private sector partnership with the government. So it's very interesting one. It's recently inaugurated, I think in December last year. So we have it, and we in the committee, and I'm privileged to be a member in this scientific committee designing the concept of the museum, and this is Merit Amun. So before, you can't feel the statues, you can't see it, you don't know that we have Merit Amun because it is lost, for example, in the Egyptian museum. But when we started having new museums, they became like the superstar of the new museums. It's the daughter of Ramses II, and a very beautiful statue. It's also the only one discovered so far. And we can see in this museum many statues, daily life elements, a stela, funerary stela, daily life. We have also Coptic elements, Islamic, contemporary art. Moving to the second project, which also recently inaugurated, it's in Sharm el-Sheikh in southern Sinai. We have also this new museum, and the Sharm el-Sheikh Museum, it discusses the human civilization, the different aspects, and also the Greco-Roman, the Roman baths that we have, and the technique of building the baths. And we have also some museums that they are not in a good state of preservation, like for example, that they are still ongoing restoration work there, like museums in the Citadel, and the storages there, they are not in a good state. So for example, we collected some of the artifacts that they are threatened, endangered, and restored them by Egyptian curators, and they were on display in these beautiful areas where you have more space, scenography, display, and you can tell the story in from different spots. The anthropoid coffins that we have, daily life elements, the animal wildlife, it is also very well reflected, family life, crafts, and all the balancing, it was always put into consideration. Another museum recently inaugurated, it was the Royal Chariot Museum. It was this building, the building was old. It was established during the reign of Khedive Ismail in 1863 till 1879. But it was then deserted and neglected. So last year, a huge restoration campaign was made, and we have also many tourists. You know, in the summer when we have tourists, they were also keen to visit this important new museum. They show different means of transportation and the different chariots that had been used in different occasions, like the opening of the Suez Canal, okay, the luxurious cars that used by the president, they were all the former presidents and kings and prominent figures. They have also documentary, royal vehicles. They have unique artifacts, and they are all restored by Egyptians, and they were brought to light in this beautiful museum, where you have the building is antique, ancient, and you have the chariots. Before, no one knows anything about this chariot, just they can see them in portraits, all paintings. So they are all now ready to visit, to receive tourists. Another trend that also inaugurated, it is Kafr al-Sheikh Museum, and this is in the Delta. It is one of the biggest museums in the Delta, and it's a regional one, and it is focuses, the concept is totally different. It is focusing on the artifacts that they were discovered in Kafr al-Sheikh, instead of transferring them to Cairo. So no, to make the tourists come to Kafr al-Sheikh, promote the area economically, they can come and, you know, craft, and the level of the family they can raise because of, you know, the tourism flow there. And if you want to see the excavation site of Buto and to know about the village or the voyage of the Holy Family, so you must go to Kafr al-Sheikh. You're not going to experience it in Egyptian Museum in Tahrir or in Sharm el-Sheikh. So that's why the economy, you see, it will be covering all over Egypt with the flow, with the currency, the level of the people. So we're using the museum as a tool for that. And we have the objects that can create and build such museums. So here it's mainly focusing on Isis, Osiris, holy manuscripts telling the story of the Holy Family, because they passed by an important site called Sakha, and it is in Kafr al-Sheikh, not very far from it. Moving to specialized museums, we have open air museums. We have a museum in Memphis, which was the first capital in ancient Egyptian civilization. It's an open air. We have an open air display and we have an indoor display, but it's partially open, where we can see important artifacts till now, and it is full with monuments, but arranged on a scientific basis. We have also child museums in Cairo. They are mainly educational, and they are helping the students in order, for example, they have cooperation with schools curricula, and they are cooperating with the schools. For example, this museum used as a lab. So they study at the school, theoretical, and then they arrange with the museum to come and visit the museum to have what they studied theoretically to practice it in this museum, interactive. So it is also, so they have a lot of booking lists, and the community, tourists also, they like to go there. And it's not just child museum, it's also entertainment for the adults and for the whole family. One of the great Egyptian specialized museum, it is the Textiles Museum. So you have the building itself where you can see the image at the top, at the bottom, sorry. So it is a Sabil. Sabil, it's a charity place where they provide water for the people. They walk in this narrow alleys. So in the past, during time of Muhammad Ali, so they make this Sabil in order to give the thirsty people walking in the street, to provide them with water, because it's important, you know, in Islam and in Christianity, to have mercy and be kind. So this is the Textile Museum. So they gathered the textiles, Coptic, Islamic, ancient Egyptian shrouds related to the royal kings, queens, okay, and they restore it, and they are on display in this specialized museum. Not only that, they have an active educational program, because this museum is situated in, it's not that rich, you know, high class district. It's just, you know, very popular commercial area called Shara Al Mu'ez. So there, the people, they go there, the students, and they start learning, doing crafts, and to know this tangible and intangible heritage, the stories that, you know, the ancient Egyptian, the former people living besides the museum, they can tell them storytelling things, the craft, the technique of weaving, all these things being taught in this museum. Moving to Alexandria, to the north, as you can see, I'm taking you from north, east, west. You see, it's unbelievable. In Alexandria, we have also the National Museum. It's one of the great museums. It used to be a house built, rich English. I can't remember the name now, but I can provide it later. The building is built in with carrying the Italian style, and this palace transferred into a museum, and it is managed by the Ministry of Culture. And in it, they have the concept of displaying the underground or the sunk cultural heritage, the monuments where we have, because we know that the city of Alexandria, when it was built by the order gave by Alexander the Great to the architect Dinocrates to build the city, and then, you know, earthquake happened. So all the monuments, they were buried under the sea and below recent Alexandria nowadays. So the idea is to display the underwater cultural heritage, the sunken monuments, and also the other artifacts that they belong to Alexandria in this beautiful. So you have the building and the story of the building, and you have the monuments, the artifacts. We have also very strong military museums. So we have it also, we have the Ministry of Defense. So this is in cooperation with the Democratic Republic of Korea. So they made this beautiful panorama telling the story of the glorious victory of the ancient Egyptian army in the 6th October. And also, you know, also it's educational because we have it in the schools now, the history and this part. So also this museum is used as a helping tool to the schools, and also open for the tourists. And tourists also, because most of the focus is on the ancient Egyptian artifacts. So we want them to know that it's not only Egypt, not only famous with the ancient Egyptian, but we have other important things to know about us. Also, this is the Egyptian Air Force Museum, recently inaugurated, where they show here all the planes, historical planes used in war, and the things are made by Egyptians, crafts, and just to show them the technique, and, you know, the briefing about the war, uniforms, and they are very active in educational programs. Moving to the Zoological Museum, it's in the zoo. And also we have many dates regarding this this museum. This is the zoo, and in it we have the zoological museum. It's educational one and open for the tourists. So it is open and closed many times. Till recently, it is very beautifully restored and inaugurated, and we can see skeletons, mummified animals, and the technique, how the birds, reptiles, they are all mummified, and the display, how they are shown in a way not to be that frightened for kids. And we have also a gallery for the animals that they are on display in the garden, and to have this communication bridging between the animals in the zoo and the animals on display in the museum. The Agriculture Museum, and it is followed after the zoo because both of them run by the Egyptian Ministry of Agriculture. So this is also one of the old museums, dates back to the 1929, and also it was one of the palaces. And in it, we have beautiful museums. We have the Museum of Cotton, and Egypt well known for the cotton and the outstanding type of cotton. We have natural history, zoological also part museum. We have also ethnographical part where you can see the Egyptians in the villages, the wedding of an Egyptian, and all the different customs, ceremonies, festivals. We have ancient Egyptian also museum, telling the story of the Nile and all the themes that are relevant to the Nile and help in the agricultural process. This is another museum, which is a different one, which shows the role of a museum. It is also located in Aswan, and it is called the Nile Museum. It is inaugurated in 2016, and it tells the story of the Nile and the High Dam, and gives an idea about how the High Dam was built and how the waterfalls we have it in Aswan and the Nile gods, and it's in cooperation with the countries, focusing on the countries that they share the water of the Nile with us. So it's a message that museum unites the countries, the same like the Nile unites people on its shores. So the same, the museum unites the countries, sharing, or they are located on the Nile or share with us the water of the Nile. So the message is very important of that museum. Other type of museums, we have postal museums. It's in Ataba, one of the great squares in Egypt, and commercial areas where we can see the history of post. And you know how letters were transported, and this is also, it is the intangible heritage we have, how the letters were transported and the uniform and how it's developed, and the oldest letter box, it is on display there. Not only antiquity museums, ancient art, classical art, but also we have modern art, and we have a lot of museums. So the most important one, it is the Egyptian Museum of Modern Art. It is located next to the Opera House in Giza, and here we can see the most leading object. It is the famous artist Mahmoud Mukhtar. We have his famous work there. It is the Bride of the Nile. It is the bronze Bride of the Nile. And we have Mahmoud also Said's painting El Medina, which is the city. Medina, it is the Arabic word. And we have always in this important museum, we have temporary exhibitions, very active museum in reflecting Egypt's modern art. Another type of art, which is the biographical museum run by the Ministry of Culture. It is the museum of Kulthum. Kulthum, this museum, it is located in Old Cairo, in the island of El Roda, and it is one of the beautiful museums, tells the story of this outstanding, iconic singer called Kulthum, and she is well known in the whole world, and especially in the Arab world, because she helped a lot Egypt. She is an iconic, until now we have it, and we can see that many events happened nowadays using the hologram, okay, in the Arab countries, imitation as if she's there, and we can see how the tickets till now, they are top sold. So we have a museum in Mani Al Roda, beautiful museum, telling the story of this beautiful iconic singer, gathering all her clothes that used worn during the famous events, concerts there. Moving to the mega projects. These are the mega projects that inshallah will be inaugurated very soon. So this is the Grand Egyptian Museum, the GEM, and it is very close to next to the pyramids and the whole area. And we are all looking forward the inauguration of these museums because it will have a strong impact on our economy and the culture and the flow of the tourists, because not only Egyptians are looking forward for this museum, but the whole world, because it is an archaeological museum and it is known as the largest archaeological museum in the world. So that's why. So still it's, and the images, they are not very good quality because still we don't have the permission, to have images because still it's under construction. So the whole collection of the King Tutankhamun will be transported there, will be transported to this museum with a new display, new scientific idea. And yeah, this is what many people, they are working there, opportunities, job opportunities open for them. It will not only be a focus for curators, but also there will be shops, there will be a lot of cinemas, malls, the whole area, transportation. So the whole community will have a great impact. So this is also the role of museum on the economy. This is the second example, which is the NAMEC, the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization. It's another mega project, and it is the first comprehensive museum in the world focusing on the Egyptian civilization. So this is also another point. This is the interior view, and this is the facade of the museum, where you can see this panoramic view on all ancient capitals in Egypt. And we're going to see the tangible and the intangible heritage will be on display in this museum. Another important event that it was announced in the media, and it is the parade, the royal parade. But unfortunately, because of the COVID and the weather, so it was postponed, but it is still on. So we have the transportation of 22 mummies from the Egyptian Museum in Tahrir in a royal parade. So the mummies will come and will end here in this gallery, which is designed with the spirit of the place of the tombs in the Valley of the Kings, and they will rest here. 20 mummies of famous kings and queens. We are not treating them like mummies, treating them like kings. There will be a parade, international parade with tourists and things, but postponed because of COVID. And this is the display of the core, where also we'll have Christian monument, artist collection, Islamic, contemporary, and the dresses of the Bedouins in Sinai, and also ancient Egyptian prehistory, the civilization of ancient Egypt. And this one, it is the new administrative capital. I'm sure that everyone heard about our new capital. And we also, but this one, I think it will be open the soonest, maybe before, inshallah, before the NAMEC and before the GEM. This is the museum, where we have a beautiful obelisk in front of it. And this is the interior view of the museum. So this colossal statue of Ramses is transferred from the open air museum in Memphis to this beautiful building. And also it will tell the story of Egypt's famous capitals, or the capitals of Egypt throughout the ancient Egyptian civilization, passing through, Memphis, Akhenaten, and then Tanis, Alexandria, Fustat, till nowadays, till we stop at the new administrative capital. So telling the story of the capitals and telling the story by using the objects. Okay, and this is the work. There it's all Egyptians, they are working there, and the curators, volunteers from the students in programs in our university. So we have the 80 hours to have intern in some of the museums. So all these museums, they are opening their doors to receive our students, to teach them the practical part and to give a hand for the museum. So we have our faculty have an active cooperation with these museums, either the main existing specialized museum or with the recently inaugurated one. So in the end, I just, I was very happy talking about the museums in Egypt. And I hope that, I met your expectation and it was not boring, but I just wanted to give you just, an idea about the museum and to focus on the role of the museum regarding the economy and the community, and how, you know, it's an important tool for tourism, and how we need to work on it. It's not enough. We need more and more museums, so that to tell the untold story of the ancient Egyptian civilization. Thank you very, very much. And I am pleased to receive your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear Dr. Mary Kopelin. Really interesting presentation.
Thank you.
I think all participants feel themselves in Egypt. So amazing pictures and information. Interesting information. It's a really good idea to have a child museum and which one military museum. It's really interesting. It's a very good idea, and I got for myself idea to organize students internship in museums. It's very good idea.
Yeah. It's working very well and very success. We have it now for 5 years here in Egypt. Yeah.
It's great. Now we have some questions.
Please.
Some of our students are Aziza Ibrahimova has questions. She is first year graduate student in the field of tourism, and she works for Museum of History as well at the moment. Aziza, now the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum, dear participants.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello, Aziza. Hello.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It was very useful, full of information, and it was interesting for me because as Zulaikha Abdul Khalil told that I work in the History Museum in Uzbekistan. And my question is about the visitors, and what do you do to attract visitors to your museums in Egypt?
Okay.
And what kind of strategy do you use, or are there any exhibitions, special unique exhibitions or workshops or TV or radio advertisements in your country?
Okay, thank you very much, Aziza. I'm really very happy having you with us. And thank you very much for your great and interesting questions. Yes, sure, we have every museum. They have a strong media department, PR, public relation department, and they market the museum. We have also the media. They are helping. They are using also the Facebook. So in addition to their website, they have also the Facebook pages, and the curators, they are very active. And they use platforms like, for example, our faculty. If, for example, I hear about an exhibition, and they are very active. Most of these museums, they have temporary exhibitions, let's say every month. It depends on the event. For example, before the holy months of Ramadan, so we have an exhibition, you know, preparing for Ramadan, so that the museum is parallel with this important, you know, holy month. If there is a Christian event, the same. If there is, for example, it is the day where Champollion discovered the ancient Egyptian, deciphered the hieroglyph inscriptions. So we have an exhibition at the Egyptian Museum about that. So temporary exhibitions, yes, we have. And even some museums, like the Textiles Museum, the Egyptian Museum in Tahrir, they dedicated a space. For example, room 45 in the Egyptian Museum in Tahrir, it's a special room dedicated for temporary exhibitions. Sometimes they have, you know, exhibition with internal loans. The Islamic Museum with the Coptic Museum, together they created an exhibition. So this is one thing. The TV also, we have documentary channels. It is called the Cultural Nile channel. They have documentary movies about museums. You know, either the director or the curator, they are telling the story of the museum. And we have now a new idea about, you know, adopted by the Ministry of Culture. Know your country by visiting your museum. And we're going to address the students and Egyptians living abroad to know your museum, your country by visiting your museum. So we have, you know, connection with our bureaus abroad, TV, locally, Facebook, curators, individual work, but this is the main thing. And in addition, touristic agencies. Now we have the ministry, it is called the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities. So also the ministry is marketing, you know, the museums and touristic sites and beaches as well. So we have it all together. And the tourists, they know because we have the website and also the UNESCO site. This is very important. That's why we're keen to have more and more sites. The NEMEC, it is also under also the control, or not the control, but you know, the supervision of the UNESCO and the GEM, because they are going to display heritage, and it doesn't belong only to Egyptians, it's also yours and belongs to all humans, you know. So that's why we're using all our channels to market, and indeed we are successful in having a lot of tourists. But unfortunately, even despite, in December, the museums were full. You know, all the big museums abroad, the British Museum, the Louvre, they will all, you know, closing their doors. And in Egypt, we are in Christmas, we are receiving tourists. But now, you know, we have some, you know, limitation. But of course, with all the precautions, we have some limitation. But we're praying, inshallah, that things will be better. And we'll have you first, and then we'll have, you know, more and more tourists.
Thank you for your answer. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you, Aziz. Thank you very much. All the best for your studies.
Thank you. There are some questions which are sent by our students and my colleagues to me. If you don't mind, can I ask them?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
How many are there museums in Egypt at all? So many museums. How many approximately?
I don't know, but you know, I don't know. I have to count them till now because we're working on a database for all our museums. You know, so that's why I don't know. I'm afraid to give a number. Maybe it will be not accurate, but I can send it to you via email. I can sit down, you know, and can gather all the museums and just put them together. Do you want the museums that are still under constructions also to be included, or just the functioning ones?
Open functioning one.
Opening
yeah.
function. Okay.
One.
I will send it to you. It's very interesting. I want also to know, but still it's a big project and we are all working on it. And we are going to create the map of Egyptian museums with all the museums. And this is with the CultNet, and to have, you know, like a hyperlink. You click on the museum, you can see all the information about it. But still it's, but that's why. And we have also the problem that we have museums that closed many times, but they are museums. So that's why it's a bit, but I'm going to count them and give you the average.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And the next question, what is the, yes, it was actually my question. What is the height of Grandma Palma, which you told at the beginning? The three palms.
Yes, about
it's
the height.
The height, yes.
No, I have also to ask. I have also to ask the curator.
Because it's really interesting. So big palm. Really
yes. It's with what I know. It's the date of the palm. It's from the date of the foundation of the old wing of the museum. It was in the garden of the old wing. Let's say 1908. So from 1908. But about the height, I have to ask. And I don't know whether someone was keen to measure it, but I will ask. And also I will send it also the height of the palm. Yeah, great.
And the next question, is there any classification regarding classification of museums regarding its religiosity? I think you answered to this question. You told that there are church museums, mosque museums. Am I right?
Yes. The Coptic Museum, the Islamic Museum, but we're not classifying them like, you know, Islamic or Coptic, because when you go visit the Islamic Museum, you're going to see also daily life. You're going to see medicine, surgery. It's not all religion. And the same in the Coptic Museum. You're going to see even pagan art. You're going to see daily life, legends, Greco-Roman legends, Leda and the Swan, Aphrodite, Apollo. you see it's legend. It's not, it is the name, but when you go in and you can experience the concept, you're going to find that it's all mixed. It's all reflecting Egypt and the civilization. It's the same like the people, you see, it's echo for the community.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And the next question, in which cities of the country are located mosque museums?
Mosque museums?
Yes.
So we have it. So we have it, especially downtown, very close to Al-Azhar Mosque, to Khan al-Khalili. So there you have, you know, Al-Azhar Mosque. You have Al-Hussein. Then you have Shara al-Mu'az, where there you can find. If you just continue walking there, you're going to find the Mosque of Ahmad ibn Toulon. Next to it, you will find Geir Anderson Museum, and also in Shara al-Mu'az, you're going to find ancient sabils, mausolea, and even houses like Beit al-Sihemi, Darb al-Asfar. All this, they are important Islamic heritage and sites. And not very far from Al-Azhar Mosque, you can find in an area called Bab al-Khalq. There you can find the beautiful Islamic museum, and next to it is the National Archive, Beit al-Dar al-Qutb, where you can find all the manuscripts with. So it's all downtown, very close, you know, to Tahrir Square, to downtown Egypt center, the hub of Cairo.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
very close to Al-Azhar Mosque.
Oh, okay, Azhar Mosque. Okay. And I think the last one, the last question. Are there any sport museums in Egypt? Can you give information about
the sport museums? Unfortunately, not yet, but we have a thesis in the master program at Helwan University. It is examined and discussed 3 years ago, and she was proposing the idea of club museums. But we don't have, you know, sport museum. But we have, for example, when you go to the Football Federation, or when you go to the big national clubs like the Ahli or Al Zamalek, they are the national teams. So when you go there, you can find galleries with some labels telling the story. But to have a museum called a sport museum about this, until now, no. But it's a great idea, and hope maybe in the new administrative capital, we have the big, you know, city, sports city, international city. Maybe there will be the idea to have such an important idea. But thank you very much for this opinion. But till now, no. But we have some attempts, like this thesis written by Dina Izzeddin about club museums, and to have it, you know, the sport, and to focus on the sport, especially football and the Egyptian sport. But we, for example, we had a temporary exhibition about sports. It was in the Egyptian Museum at Tahrir Square, and it was simultaneously with the with the African World Cup. So we have the African World Cup in Egypt, and simultaneously we had a temporary exhibit about sport in ancient Egypt. So parts. So this means that we are working on it, but till now, you know, it's priorities, to finish all these, you know, big projects and museums, and then, but it is, you know, on the table, but we don't have it physically yet. We hope.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
There is one more question in the chat box. The question is asked by our PhD candidate, Ilmira. She, her scientific work in topic tourism sphere. So she writes, "Good afternoon. Thank you very much for such informative and interesting presentation. I have one question regarding age category of tourists visiting museums, and one more regarding if they are more individual or group tourists."
Oh yeah, we have, thank you very much. We have both. We have both. We have individual tourists, we have teenagers, we have school programs, teenagers, and we have family, we have all types of tourists. And even we have, for example, in Hurghada, in Sharm el-Sheikh, in Cairo. So we have all types of tourists. But the majority, you know, when, you know, this pandemic happened, so we have some countries, they are putting some restrictions on, you know, on group tourism. So we have more individual, but, you know, usually we have all types. We have groups, and we have no restriction, and we have also basketball teams, female team, they come and visit from Africa, from the States, all over the world. We have all types. And no problem at all, yani, for visiting, and they enjoy. Sometimes they are with guides, and sometimes no, they are here. They want to come and experience, to learn Egypt by their own. So some they are systematic through guides. Sometimes no, they come and visit friends here, and they come and enjoy Egypt. So we have all types waiting for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for such a really interesting and a really informative presentation.
Thank you. I am honored. I am honored, really.
We are very happy. Now we really want to visit the museums of Egypt. We hope it will happen. I think
I'll be your guide. I'll be waiting for all of you, and I will be your guide. Yes, it's a pleasure.
Thanks
I'm honored.
a lot. I think our cooperation just starts. I think we'll cooperate
inshallah, inshallah, yeah,
in our field. And I'm very thankful on behalf of our administration of our university and the students and colleagues. Thank you so much. I think the questions are all done.
Okay.
And thank you so much.
My pleasure.
We are very happy, and I think we will work together in the future as well.
Inshallah, inshallah. Thank you very much. And here is the email, and I will send it also if you need any questions anytime, and I will send you the numbers and the other the height, the things that I was not able to answer it, and you have the emails. And for the students, anytime, any question, I'll be very happy to help and to answer them. Yeah, and I wish you all the best.
Thanks a lot. Just let us know when you come to Tashkent. We'll be happy also to see you in Tashkent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you send your email in a chat? Can you write it in a chat box?
Okay. Yes, I will write it down. Yes. Yes, I just typed here. Okay, just a moment. I'll just. Have this and spelling 75. No, I think I can write. Yes, it's mary.75gmail.com. Yes, because Misak, they wrote it. I think it is that's why it is confusing. It's with K, and sometimes it's the official email. They write it with C. So just I want to be sure. Yes, just a moment. It's no, it's right. Mary.misak@fth edu. Yeah. edu.eg. Yes.
Yeah.
75 at gmail.com and Marie Misak fth.helwan edu Egypt. Yes. Oh. Yes. So you have to, both.
Okay. Yes, I received it.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. Thanks
Thank
a
you
lot.
very much. Thank
you.
you. See you. Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.